Today, we're going to be diving into what these tariffs are going to do to crypto, and this is not looking good, guys. Let me break it down for you. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Yesterday was a historic day in the Rose Garden, and the amount of things that are coming out of this scenario in terms of confusion, this is the only thing that matters, and that is more connection to people around you that know what's talking about in this market. Join our Telegram group. It's right down below. You guys can get started there. I want to go over and lead off with this one post right here. This clip will go down in history. And this was basically, as the tariff announcement was being done, how much the stock market was being hit. So 425, the S&P were trading at around 1.7 higher. 426, Lutnik handed the poster outlining reciprocal. Stock market started to futures filling real time as he read off the Trump's tariffs by name, and then by 442, it had raced $2 trillion in market cap. So that's $125 billion in a minute. Guys, this was a big impact. And I think a lot of people are looking at this and the reversal. You got to remember that we were closing in on many people thinking 90K on Bitcoin. As we talk today, Bitcoin's hovering around 81,000. So a big impact. Let me kind of a rundown on many of the media responses that happened yesterday. Take a look.
I think you can, for the most part, see it. A discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%.
So is that 34% on top of that, meaning it's a 54% reciprocal tariff on China?
I believe it is.
Okay.
You are holding the numbers that he was saying.
Announcing.
Is that piece of paper accurate to you?
They took the trade deficit for each country and divided it by the total trade, meaning that any trade deficit is inherently unfair.
They reverse engineered it to get to the numbers that they wanted.
You have a trade deficit with your hairstylist. Does that mean you need to learn how to style hair?
Right, exactly.
We settled this hundreds of years ago.
Calling these reciprocal is not really.
We don't use that word. We're done using that word.
We're done using that because that's just, I don't want to call it a lot.
Everybody sit back, take a deep breath. Don't immediately retaliate. If you retaliate, that's how we get escalation.
And then it becomes a full-fledged trade war, in your view?
Not a trade war. Depends on the country.
China today announced that not only are they going to hit back with counter tariffs, but also with an expanded retaliation toolbox.
Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia. Oh, look at Cambodia, 97%.
I mean, I have a friend who works at a company. She had just moved all her production to Cambodia.
A nightmare come true for textile and footwear manufacturers.
I mean, the European Union, they hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
So what would you say to people in the auto industry who are worried about that timeline and how quickly that could shift?
Buy American.
I'm not going to be affected by the tariffs, Cuomo. I have an American car, and I'm never buying a foreign car. I never have, and I never will.
How much of the auto parts you use for car repairs come from outside the U.S.?
I want to say at least 90% of them.
10-year yield trading near its lowest level since October. This is seen as a flight to safety at this point.
American companies are, and rightly so, paralyzed right now.
Here's a live reaction from a Wall Street executive after the Trump tariffs hit.
So yeah, we're just really well positioned right now. Oh, really? Oh, shit. Okay. I just looked at the screen. I hadn't looked at it. You know, it got hit when I think the tariff came out.
Do you plan on having negotiations before that date?
We'll see.
Canada and Mexico notably missing. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
The president has mentioned he's willing to even look at things like TikTok.
Well, we haven't started anything yet.
Plans for conversations or a trip to Beijing?
Nothing imminent.
How concerned are you how corporate America is feeling at this moment?
Well, it tells me a couple of things. One, we got to get the tax bill done quickly.
One big, beautiful bill. I'd like to name it that if you can. And it will be that. It'll have everything, the big tax cuts. And
that's going to push the U.S. economy into recession. Could see fiscal stimulus.
I brought a hat. Would anybody like a hat?
All right, so guys, this was an absolute hijack of what I think the position of the American people were in putting Trump in office. And I think they've been double-crossed in this particular case. And this is what's going to play out now, is teetering on recession. This could be one of the biggest impacts on the market. Now, many people would look at this and say, well, maybe this is the final bottom, because at least we have some resolution that these are attempted, and the only way I hope is to negotiate these out with each country. People are looking at other ways to a flight to safety, and many are, of course, looking at gold. Something is wrong even when gold is down 2%. So this is a massive flight to the sidelines. And, of course, that's what the question is right now, is where are you playing these markets? Breaking 10-year Treasury note yield is briefly dropping 4% for the first time since October. This is market prices increase recession risk. If the recession risk continues, and then we see a potential of a new bill coming through that are going to be corporate tax cuts for major corporations. This is exactly how and what they were using these tariffs for, is to pay for these tax cuts to corporations. That is a negative position, I think, that the American people will start to maybe show. This could definitely give an opening for the Democrats, without a doubt. Folks just don't get it. Rates are declining. Besson is a happy man. His North Star right now is the U.S. Treasury 10-year yield, not the Fed. And, of course, tariffs will eventually force the Fed's hand. That's what everybody's looking at right now. And if we look at it this way, when you look at the 10-year, which is about to break 4%, this is a completely different economic outlook going forward from what it was just 30 days ago. So a huge impact on the market. Here was Trump over on Trump Social, is basically saying the operation is over, patient lived and is healing. They know how bad of a hit this is for him to make these kinds of statements. And more resilient than ever. Yeah, well, we're going to have to be more resilient than ever, because right now I think we are going to see market disarray for quite some time, because many of these companies, many of these industries probably do not even realize how much this is going to affect them over the next 6 to 12 months. All right, when you look back at that tweet I was just showing in terms of healing the market, if you go back to 2018, and I want to kind of zoom in on this a little bit for you guys, this was the period in which Trump initiated the first tariffs, and I've got a big bullseye right there. So the market kind of slipped up a little bit. Then we saw the retraction. The period of time that was between March and December of 2018, so basically almost 9 months coming in on this in terms of a market to see the bottom. And of course, from there, we had a nice little upswing sideways and then the blow off top. So this could be a much longer issue facing the markets right now. And if we get pushed further, because of the macro environment, this is where the recession possibility could come into play. Let's go over and take a look at Polymarket. U.S. recession right now in 2025, sliding up right now on the market, even though it's kind of somewhat holding a position right now, a 47% chance. But if you look at this back just not too long ago, March 28th, 33% chance, considerably increased now in just a few days. So question is how does the Fed react? So Fed right now, this is a potential change on the May decision right here. And if you look at this right now, still no change holding. And if I think, when you look at the consideration of where this could be related to jobs, because this is a thing that's going to concern me, is if companies start to understand, because this is something that companies have been very resilient on, is holding the employment side. If companies start to see this start to impact costs, maybe we start to see the numbers that Chair Powell are fearful of, and that is the job numbers to start to go up in terms of unemployment. So let's take a look at rate cut opportunity here. Let's go ahead and kind of highlight on this. Market now is pricing in 4 rate cuts from Jerome Powell, and you can kind of see this starting to move in. I think this is where printing will start with the impact of what these tariffs are going to do. Now, and everybody's kind of been looking at this as, has this been a planned recession or a planned fall in the market? The question, I think, is they're walking a very tight time road. Arthur Hayes hits on this Trump tariffs formula. Further evidence, he is laser focused on reversing these imbalances. The problem for Treasury is that without exports, foreigners can't buy bonds. The Fed and the banking system must step up to ensure Treasury markets, which is meaning they're going to have to print. So if you don't have bonds being purchased by the international markets, the only way out through this is going to be through the Fed printing, and that is monetary easing. And if we see an easing of the Fed, that I think starts to move the markets in the right direction. The question is, how fast will the Fed move? So the real question here is how our country is going to be dealing with this, because negotiation is going to be part of this. This is a clip from the Senate just yesterday on tariffs on Canada. Take a look.
Well, yesterday we were telling you a little bit about a move in the Senate to roll back some of Trump's tariffs on Canada. We can now report that there are at least 4 Republicans who are set to join Democrats in that effort, meaning that this does have enough votes to pass in the Senate. Now, to be clear, what they're actually voting on is the emergency powers that Trump invoked that allowed him to then put those tariffs onto Canada. And this would need to pass both chambers, so it's unlikely to actually pass the House. Much steeper climb than the Senate. But this is going to be a real test, and really the first time that we are getting Republicans on the record with how they feel about Trump's tariffs. We expect that vote to be around 7 p.m. tonight, and we'll definitely be keeping on top of exactly what those final totals are. Kelly?
Emily, is it veto-proof?
So it is not veto proof. So if this somehow did get through the House and Trump vetoed it, it would not be able to continue. There probably are not enough votes to actually get that far. And I can tell you just from conversations that I've had in the halls, if you don't see a lot more than these 4 votes, there are certainly a lot more lawmakers than that who are very concerned about what this could mean for their home state.
All right, so you can kind of see there is the big issues here, I think, is that the Republicans are starting to cross the line, meaning they're starting to look at these tariffs and understand that a lot of their constituents, companies, businesses, mom and pop shops, you name it, are being hit with this. This is going to cause massive impact on the economy here in the U.S. And I think the companies are not going to sit down and take this lightly. They're going to start putting pressure on their congresspeople, on their senators. And this, I think, will start to change maybe a little bit of the narrative coming out of D.C. Also, if you look at the Canadian Prime Minister, this is the new guy, potentially, Carney says Canada will impose 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the U.S. It's immediately going to hit the United States, including places like Tesla, that will get hit on Canadian. Now, granted, I'm not sure that we sell a lot of cars there, but still. Peter Schiff kind of hits on this. Nike won't build factories for the U.S. because this is where it comes into the fakery that's being done by the Trump administration. And that is that by imposing these tariffs at this level, we're going to push onboarding of companies and factories back to the United States, when in reality, these tariffs are a underpin of just supporting a tax cut to the corporations. And what he's talking about is factories are just going to take it on the chin and pass this right down to the American public. That is an issue that I think we will take. Now, how long does this take effect? Maybe this is 3 months, 6 months, or maybe this is over the next year. The real question is, how long does it last? Bill Ackman came in and said sometimes the best strategy in negotiation is convincing the other side thinks you're crazy. I think they have achieved that in these negotiations. So the question is, what's going to come out of this right now? This is where it gets a little bit not kosher to me. And this is where you got Eric Trump, the son of President Trump, already going out there and putting almost a PR campaign to say, hey, I wouldn't be the last country to try to negotiate a deal. It's almost as if they're backing these countries into a corner. And I think this is where it backfires. When you're negotiating something, you've got to leave a little bit of room for these countries to at least save face. And that is the issue facing us right now. Other things, you got Elon Musk. This is another negative that, of course, is going to continue to play out, where Elon is going to stay in the capacity of running DOGE and possibly continuing to run the other companies that he's operating, we'll call them companies, into the ground if he doesn't get back to work with Tesla's numbers falling like crazy. And of course, just in, President Trump invites President Bukele to the House to discuss ways we can support each other. Now, this is interesting. Bukele, pro-Bitcoin, but also, I think, pro-innovation. He might be able to talk a little sense into Trump, I hope. But the big thing is maybe he's there to do a deal. And that would be in line with negotiation of countries starting to basically suck up to Trump, which is what he wants, to be able to do a deal. And what does it look like on the backside? Here's Howard Lutnik on what this is going to do to the dollar. Take a look.
So it is true. It's a strategy to weaken the dollar.
It's not a strategy to weaken the dollar.
But it's part of the plan. It's part of the plan.
It is not a plan. We don't have a plan about the dollar. We plan about American factories. And these are all outcomes of stop you manipulating our currency. Stop it. Okay. And if that means the dollar goes back to where it should be because you've stopped manipulating it, it makes sense to me.
All right, so the key there that he just stated, one, they didn't have a plan, and two, is that it's going to bring back American companies. I think this is going to be a problem for the Republicans and also the administration very quickly, because the American voter is going to expect to see companies and jobs coming back. And I think we are in a position right now where jobs are going to start to disappear. That will be an exact opposite of what this administration is trying to do, and it will have major effects on the market. Now, with all the bad news, at least there was a little bit of good news, and that was that the financial services passed, at least through the committee, the Stablecoin Transparency and Accountability for a Better Ledger. This is stable, the Stablecoin Act. This is now through the committee. It's going to be going into vote. Most likely this will get passed and moving on in terms of stablecoin, which is positive for crypto in general. But of course, the macro environment right now, I think, is the number one thing to keep an eye on. Last up right here, just to show you who voted against that Stable Act. Let's just zoom in on that because there's some people that you should know. Ranking Member Waters, Maxine Waters, who was part of the Stablecoin Bill Act last year with Patrick McHenry. And then, of course, you can see Brad Sherman in there, David Scott. You guys know these people if they're in your district. There's Sean Casten, the other guy that not a big fan, Rashida Tlaib out of Michigan, Cleo Fields, Bill Foster. These are all the negative votes. So those are the ones continuing to suppress innovation again as we start to see this next technology take place around where blockchain is going to be. Guys, this is going to be an absolute crazy week. Stick around right here. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in. It's an easy place to get additional updates from us. Also, subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that little bell. We'll probably be doing some more live streams. That will give you notification when we put these shows out, and hopefully keep an eye on where this market is going. This is now D-Day for crypto. I think we have got to face this front on and look at where these markets are going. Follow me on X. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.